we can hear the rails grinding in the background, Charles, so that means we're once again in a public New York City park where people shouldn't be skateboarding.
Exactly, and spring has sprung, as has stupid.
I think it's almost summer even. Today is an amazingly beautiful day.
It is.
And we're here. Let's take a look around just, the crazies here in Washington Square Park.
Sure. Well, as we reflect on how George Washington got us out of the obligation to attend the King's coronation.
Right. Ah, yes, of course. That's
Christopher Columbus, right? That guy.
Right.
Remember during the BLM where they're like, take down the statue of Christopher Columbus. It's George Washington. Oh, what's the difference?
Right. Yeah, because everybody who's advising that knows. But thank you for reminding me of that. Today, it's the Coronation, stupid. And I'm not familiar with that show, Coronation Street, but it lent itself to a perfect title.
It was. And it was, all the things, when historians get around eventually to writing the strange history of the Biden years, it is obviously at this moment an epic disaster.
Oh, yeah.
But in hindsight, it will be, who knows what the consequences will add up to be over time.
Decades will be facing consequences.
Well, the one thing that Biden has done, there's certain common threads. Everything he does or doesn't do benefits China, right?
Our adversaries, for sure. Yeah, you're right, China.
Right. And another thing is that everything he does internationally causes allies to question whether it makes sense remaining allied to the United States.
Yeah.
And if we could debate whether we wanted England to be our indispensable ally, and we could go back to the early history, and yes, France was instrumental in the Battle of Yorktown, causing us to win the Revolutionary War. But over many, many decades until Biden and until Obama, the United States and the UK cooperated in numerous international exploits. Some were very stupid, some were not.
Right.
And to have this opportunity, I read that until now, or since the beginning of our republic, no sitting American president has ever attended a coronation.
Yeah.
For a variety of reasons. You were telling me about that, I think, as well.
Well, this was pretty interesting. It was a story in the Post, and when you go back and look over the timeline, the history of coronations, it's particularly interesting because it doesn't happen every 4 years, 12 years, 8 years. It's just depending on when these various guys die. And when you looked at the explanation that this really comprehensive story in the Post gave, I think it said a lot. Like, first they didn't want to go because it was too close to the American Revolution, and then, it sort of got around to this place where after World War II, because the United States and the United Kingdom had been so closely allied throughout that battle and the historical significance that it had,
right,
that Eisenhower sent a military delegation to Queen Elizabeth's coronation in 1953, which was filmed in 3D.
Wow.
And that sort of made a lot of sense because it was upholding this tradition of like, hey, look, the president's not going to go because the whole president-king thing, but we're allies, and so we're going to send a delegation of some significance. And Joe just brushed this off like it was, Charles's birthday party or something, and we'll go next year.
Well, what I love, and I don't think I told you this, but the English have, particularly the upper crust connected English, have a very elegant way of knifing you in the stomach, and you not even noticing it. So what they did is to make sure that Jill and the daughter, the crackhead daughter, had a very choice.
Finnegan, I think her name is, or something.
Is that her granddaughter?
Something very. It's Hunter's daughter.
Okay, to make sure that they had they were really an integral part of the proceedings. The English seated them next to the porta potties.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah.
I saw they were way in the back.
Yeah, that's hilarious. We really value and appreciate the support you Americans have given us. Why don't you, over there, next to the...
I mean, wasn't it appropriate, though? I mean, it's an insult that once in a lifetime we have, setting aside my personal feelings about monarchies, England is a country that is an ally, and from a diplomatic standpoint, it would have been appropriate to send an important delegation of diplomats, not just, his wife and crackhead daughter, granddaughter, whatever she is.
Well, and his second wife, I guess Camilla was his second wife. But the thing that's I know you disagree with parts of this, but I'm going to say it anyway, which is that as far as NATO is concerned, which until the Biden administration was a reasonably important alliance, the only time that NATO invoked that mutual protection clause to date was over 9/11.
Right.
When the British and many other allied partners came to our aid and also fought with us over many years in places like Afghanistan and Iraq. And there, to go back to the Afghanistan Biden exit,
Yeah.
the manner in which we left Afghanistan was so horrifically planned, if it was planned at all,
And executed.
and likely has harmed. I mean, I can imagine the English going around to reluctant members of NATO and saying, you really need to step it up. We have, to help our American friends, and they went to bat for us, I think, many different times. And he was in Ireland a week before, forgot about it.
Right.
And the school arrested him.
Oh man.
What?
I thought we were having a problem, but it seems okay.
And so, that was just, on so many levels, it was a disaster. And then when we look and see who went. So the Chinese sent a vice premier who I think was,
Right.
well, he was the guy who was...
Before we get to that, Charles, I just want to address the part about 9/11 that I might not agree with. People who are waiting to hear what I have to say about that, unfortunately, we're going to have to discuss that in the First Amendment Forum, where we will be in about 20 minutes. People can join us on subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, as well as odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth and crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com. People are also, Charles, watching charlesortel.substack.com, eagerly awaiting new material. But we'll talk about 9/11 and my feelings about England and them helping us through NATO in the First Amendment Forum. Please carry on with what you're telling us about China.
So when we look back, and I remember fondly my first and early visits to Hong Kong. Hong Kong is a shadow of its former self, in part because H.W. Bush and later Bill Clinton and Tony Blair basically screwed the Western-leaning residents of Hong Kong in the treaty that the Chinese jumped all over and have effectively abrogated by their behavior in the Trump years. And the very person who was brought in to quell the pro-democracy protests in reaction to what the Chinese were doing, and who did so, I would say, violently and grossly in contradiction with norms that we consider to be important in this country, that man was the person who attended the coronation.
Oh, really?
Yeah, as if to say, listen, you're definitely a minor country, and we just want to remind you that this guy over here kicked your whole ass.
The whole ass, not just the left side, not just the right side.
The entirety of the
entire ass got kicked.
Yeah, into oblivion.
With both feet.
Exactly. Mugu guy pan your ass. I mean,
You gotta lay down on the ground to kick that ass.
It was epic. And then a member of the imperial household, I think it was some prince of Japan, was there, and all sorts of heads of state were there.
Well, the other thing that's funny is that you also had like Katy Perry there, but not Meghan Markle.
Right. Yeah. And anyway, I think it was. I at times liked Piers Morgan, but he was really foolish, I thought, on the Fox coverage.
What was he doing?
He got up there and he said, I won't do the accent. In moments like this, we can forget about the fact that for centuries England was the center of the civilized world. We manufactured this, we did that, and now I suppose it's a good thing to demonstrate that what we're really good at is hosting parties.
They think that. I've heard other British people say that, and it's like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
You're good at being condescending and sounding intelligent, and other than that, I'm not so sure. Green race cars, they've made some that are interesting.
But to say, America's had Silicon Valley, America has great industrial companies, America has this, but we can host parties.
We need that. That's definitely, yeah.
We're right up there with the Belgians making chocolate.
That's funny. Another British guy told me that one time, and I was like, is that something that British people are known for that I don't know about?
No, they do throw nice parties, actually.
Okay.
But that's not like, maybe that's important in Washington, D.C. and at the World Economic Forum.
Right. I mean, the point is, Piers Morgan and frankly all of Fox, because it's run by a
Australian.
What do they call the subjects? Yeah, right. Rupert Murdoch is clearly a subject of the Queen or King.
Not technically, he's in Australia.
Well, but wasn't he knighted or something? And
no.
Australia is. It's
a Commonwealth country, and the Queen is nominally the head of state, I think, but he's not a subject, I don't believe.
Don't they have the picture of the Queen on their money? They have that in Canada. They're all subjects as far as I'm concerned.
All right.
But anyway, Piers Morgan and Rupert Murdoch both act like they're
right.
Kingsmen or something.
Could be. Could be. So we're heading close to the scene of the crime. Let's hope there isn't more crime.
Right. We're heading back over to the subway stop at Broadway and Lafayette. So let's talk a bit about, I don't know that you and I have had enough of an opportunity to speak about Jordan Neely, and there's a lot of new information coming to light. It's funny that it's come out now. His uncle or somebody said that he was self-medicating with K2. Like, that's a colloquialism for the guy who was addicted to a drug that, frankly, I don't think is well understood or controlled.
Right.
Because it's supposed to be synthetic marijuana, according to the marketing materials, but it just looks like potpourri, and it's sprayed with a variety of chemicals. And the thing that I did yesterday, Charles, I spent some time looking around at a couple of different explanations as far as what it is. And when you ask things like the CDC, they tell you one thing. But then when you go start looking at interviews with people who have been to prison and stuff like that and recovered K2 addicts and stuff like that, it seems like there is not a consistent formulation of this drug, and that it's basically just some kind of street thing, some sort of new, not that well understood, not that well regulated, chemically based thing that can include a range of different chemicals that have a wide range of effects on the users, but it seems dangerous and it seems to create erratic, delusional behavior. We're learning more now that this guy was not just some poor soul who needed our pity. I mean, maybe he does on some level, but he's also a violent criminal who had punched a 67-year-old woman, breaking her orbital bone, apparently.
What's the orbital bone for people like me?
The thing that holds in your eye.
So that's not good.
It can create a lot of problems. It was just fractured on this lady, but I had a friend who had his orbital bone broken and his eye, it affected his vision.
Scrambled eye.
Not that it scrambled his eye, it's just that when the bone healed, the eye didn't rest in the same place. So I was speaking to my stereoscopic eye doctor about this, and he said he's seen a lot of patients like that from car accidents and stuff, and some of them never recover their proper stereoscopic vision.
Well, what I would say is an unfortunately too frequent rider on the subway of late. It's the only way to get from certain places to certain places.
Right.
At the moment, there is a climate of fear and anxiety.
Yes.
On the subway. Around in the subway. In particular, for those people who've never been to New York, a lot of the subways have, around.
Hang on just a second, Charles. Damn it. It just did it again. So everything is so super strapped down here, and it just disconnected. Okay. Give me a second here, and let me see if my new quick. Seems potentially harmless, so let's see if it reconnects by itself here without issue. Because if not, I'm going to be super duper upset. Man, it's not. Okay. Stand by, Charles. We got to. This has been so thoroughly troubleshot. The fact that it continues to not. Setting. Okay. I've recovered it.
You good?
Yes.
So, what were we talking about?
We were talking
about the climate of fear in the subway. So, a lot of the subway, the one I'm going on, the F train, for example, which was where this incident occurred, at Washington Square, it has, you go downstairs to get in.
Problem.
Okay. Be careful.
I see it.
Downstairs, get to one level, Then,
Sorry, Charles.
okay.
What the hell is causing this? Got no sense. This is just stunning. This is just. How could this keep happening? Obviously, this thing doesn't work. Wow. Oh, man. So upsetting.
Wow, that is.
This Volvo? Here, hang on just one second. Hold that. Got one last thing we're going to try in the course of rectifying this issue here. I gotta, I guess, go back to using the heavy thing, but I can't. It's backbreaking. Wow. Okay, so you go down the stairs to one level.
And then there's a mezzanine, which is scary because there are very few people on the mezzanine. It's a big.
Keep walking down the street. Maybe it's electronic interference.
And not talk or talk.
No, yeah, it seems to be abating. So you go down the mezzanine, and what happens?
It's like a basement, basically, where you then, for some reason, they have this mezzanine, then you go down another level, and there you are, 3 levels underground. And if a train has just left the station, you could be by yourself.
For a long time, half an hour.
Not half an hour, typically 10 minutes.
At night, you could
No,
be
I
there
don't
20
go there
minutes.
At night. I think we want to go down. This is yeah. So somewhere around here is where that stop is.
It's down that way.
Yeah. So, and what happens, and this happened when I was a kid riding the subway up to Horace Mann, there'll be packs of kids, preteens, teenagers, maybe older.
Yeah.
And they're doing what stupid kids do. I mean, all kids do in their teen years. You know, wilding is too strong a term. They're acting up and talking smack, and it's not simply minority kids. It can be.
Yeah, we saw that was a white kid on the bicycle acting like a jerk.
It's kind of a thing that happens. I would say, well, you know, and it's precisely in that time frame. Either you send, if you can, your children off to boarding school.
Send them off to boarding school or send them to prison.
Or as in the case of Trump, to military school.
It's back to fail. He's getting so yelled at.
Back or not?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. So, but it's precisely in that critical period, and some would say earlier in the formative years, that you need to have the attention of 2 parents focusing on kids who have their best interests at heart. You really do. And too many families, my own included, did not have that. And I can tell you, as the custodial parent of 2 kids, even with a nanny, it's tough to keep. And especially when 2 gang up on you or 3 gang up on you and they're acting silly and stupid in front of their friends, you know, it happens. And anyway, because the police have clearly signaled and the city council and mayor have signaled that they don't give a fuck about the city and about crime. They're like, get away with. And every ride that I go on, every time I go out on the street,
Every time I think I have this fixed, it just starts failing again. Oh, God. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to stop and I'm going to reset the phone and then we'll carry on in the First Amendment Forum. Sorry about all that, everybody, and we'll be back in just a moment.